You're muted. We don't hear you.
Yeah, but don't let
Okay.
anybody in yet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so Sadi, it's working. Just mute yourself and close the video.
Mute. Under Dan's instructions, Shelley. I'll
I'm
be
sorry?
back. Under Dan's instructions, no video, no sound, and I'll be back at 7:30.
Okay.
Shelley, in another 2 minutes.
Okay.
And really, thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Believe me. I thank you for coming.
It's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah.
And, you know, how many minutes into 7:30 do we start? Start right away?
Usually they get on and just talk a little bit, but usually Dan opens it up a little before 7:30. So I would just get started.
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
You ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. You're muted at the moment, I assume. It's very powerful for me to be able to speak and have no one be able to answer. Hi, Ron. Shelley, you're letting all these, there are people in the waiting room, right? You're letting everybody in? Well, I guess not. We're going to wait like another moment and then we'll begin. Very nice to see all of you again. Hi, Linda. Those of you who are Ibani, those of you who are only Kabbalat Shabbat people have actually never done this service with me. I substituted for Dan when he was on paternity leave in December or November, December. So it's nice to meet you if we haven't met live. Okay, so we're going to begin. All of you, just give me a thumbs up that you can hear me well. Okay, fantastic. So it's, of course, it's a sad reason that I'm with you this evening, but it's always an honor to be with you. And after now, you know, this growing amount of time that we haven't sat together, we as guests and you as regulars in your synagogue and even in your congregation in the church, it feels like a privilege for me to be able to at least be with you on Zoom. I am in the Pocono Mountains my wife's family is gathered over this Shabbat. So we'll hope that everything just goes beautifully, but you'll know at least that I'm not in Manhattan and I'm not in the Hamptons. So I'm bringing you fresh air from the mountains. So I'm going to start with lighting candles. but I can't quite get them up high enough for you to see me, but trust me. And if you have candles, please light them at home. And I'll lift them up in a second. You see? You trust me? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. If you turn to page 128 in the Siddur, I'm of course not as skilled in voice as your Chazan, but I'd like to begin as she normally does with a sort of meditative piece. On 128 at the bottom, it's a pity actually that the Siddur doesn't acknowledge who wrote these things on the page that they appear. They thought it would be distracting. But in fact, this beautiful poem is by the famous then poet laureate of the Jewish people, Chaim Nachman Bialik, Shabbat HaMalkah. And he talks about this time of day, as you can see in the translation. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gathered to welcome Shabbat, our queen, etc. And the melody, which I know you've heard before, is really quite haunting and beautiful. And it goes like this. Achama merosh, ha'ilanot nistalaka, bohu v'neitzei, likrat Shabbat hamalka, hinei hi yoredet, HaKadosha HaBerucha Ve'ima Malachim Tzva Shalom Umenucha Boi Boi Hamalaka Boi Boi HaKahala Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. We formally begin Kabbalat Shabbat on page 130 with Lechu Neranena. Lechu Neranena Ladonai, Nari Alitzur Yisheinu, Nikadma fanav bitodah, bizmirot narialo. Nikadma fanav bitodah, bizmirot narialo. Page 131. Let's sing together. I mean, I can't hear you when you're muted, but you sing. And the greatest thing about Zoom is that if you can't sing, there's nobody around, you can sing as loud as you want and you won't disturb anybody. So it's a wonderful kind of experience. And if you can sing, we'll sort of guess that we can hear you. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai baruchu shemohu, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, sapru v'goyim kevodo, bechol ha'amim nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai, umehulal me'od, Norahu al kol Elohim, ay ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim va'Adonai shamayim asa hod v'hadar לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל עצי יער. לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים באמונתו. Page 132, we'll sing together at the bottom of the page. Or zarua lahatzadik uleishrei lehev simcha. Or zarua lahatzadik uleishrei lehev simcha. Turn to page 134 and we'll read together in English. Now you have no excuse. So, unless you don't have a book, we'll read together on 134 in the middle of the page. Sing praise to Adonai with the lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and the blast of the horn. Raise a shout before Adonai the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples with equity. Lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, v'amim b'mei sharim. Okay. Now we'll turn to page 138. Lecha Dodi, I know you know that. We're going to do, as is your custom, we're going to do the first 4 paragraphs, and then we'll turn to the paragraph number 9. When we get past number 4, if you're able to stand, please stand and face wherever your door is, because that's the moment that we greet the Shabbat Queen. I'll just tell you a quick story. Although, as most of you know, I am not a rabbi. Father, uncle, grandfather, cousins skipped me, and my 2 sons now are rabbis, and sometimes my wife and daughter threaten. But I'm sometimes invited to perform as a rabbi, sort of like now. And I was once asked to perform a wedding in Israel for a couple who had been married legally outside the country, so we didn't need the rabbinate to approve it. And they wanted to get married on a Friday afternoon when there are no Jewish weddings. So I thought about this, okay, sounds really good. And then in the midst of my preparing myself to perform this wedding, where the couple said to me, at Israeli weddings, nobody pays attention, so don't even think about saying anything, just do the service and we'll pay attention. I said to myself, I'm not doing this Israeli style. And I got everybody's attention. I mean, there were hundreds of people smoking and talking and everything, exactly what they normally do at a wedding. And I pointed out to them that in this, in Lecha Dodi, we have this sort of amazing imagery that includes the imagery of a chatan and a kala, of a bride and groom. And it's really quite extraordinary. And there we were, standing on a hilltop in the northern part of Israel, and the words were really jumping off the page. Yasis, the ones that you don't read every week. Yasis alayich Elohayich kimsos chatan al kala. That the celebration that God will have will be like the celebration of a bride and a bridegroom. And so this whole image of the Shabbat Queen is quite something to think about in terms of the imagery that it creates. It's a very sensual image. And again, if you allow yourself to to sort of suspend, the details of this word or that. The imagery is very powerful, that we're sort of entering on this day a relationship, a real relationship, a loving relationship. So let's sing together on 138. And again, if you're able to stand, when we get to that last paragraph, you can do so. And if not, by all means, just stay exactly as you are. I'm trying to decide which melody I should do. You have a favorite, or you can't talk? So I'm going to do an old one, which may bring back camp memories for some of you. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmianu el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'letiferet v'litilah, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi mekor ha'baracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof maseh b'machashava techilah, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, Kumitzi mitocha hafecha, Rav lach shevet b'yemek habacha, V'hu yachamol alayich chemlaha, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Hitna'ari me'afar kumi, Livshi bigdei tifartei chami, Al yad ben Yishai beit talachmi, Karva el nafshi ge'alaha, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Now the last paragraph. And if you can stand and face the door. Bo'i v'shalom ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, Toch emunei am sigula, Bo'i chala, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. You may be seated if you were standing, and you may remain seated if you were seated. Turn to page 140. We'll sing together the last 8 lines of the bottom of the page, which are really, let's read the translation actually together. It's the indentation at the very bottom of the page. Tzadik katamar means the following: the righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no wrong. But the imagery, is so extraordinarily natural, physical. Trees and the date palm and all of these pieces, it tells us something about the authors of our prayers, of our prayer book, who really were engaged both in the book and in the universe around that book, like in the stained glass behind Shelley's head. Very pretty. So let's sing together. Tzadikata hamar yifrach k'erez balavanon yisket shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva tishenim virananim Ihu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. Before we move to the Mariv service, if you just look on the next page, 141, and look in the English at another one of these natural images, which, by the way, is natural, but not natural to people living in Eretz Yisrael on the edge of the Mediterranean. The ocean sounds Adonai, the ocean sounds its thunder, the ocean sounds its pounding above the thunder of the mighty waters, more majestic than the breakers of the sea, etc. It indicates how far they went to find the images that they wanted to use. And I was once asked to conduct a Kabbalat Shabbat service a few years ago on one of the early sailings of the Queen Mary. And, you know, we got up to this paragraph and we were on the ocean and it was a rough day. And I said, wow, this is like, you know, like it never had occurred to me before how powerful these words were. And all of a sudden we're on the sea and you realize what the image is, what it's referring to. It's grabbing you. Okay. So now, if you will, please turn to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish. We'll begin the Mariv, the evening service. And please, you know, in all these pieces, since you're out there, don't sit back. By all means, join me. It'd be delightful to think of you singing, even if I can't hear you. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yamal divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael bahagala uvizman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam u'le'yomei Amaya Yitbarach Ve'yishtabach Ve'yitpa'ar Ve'yitromam Ve'yitnasei Ve'yitadar Ve'yit'aleh Ve'yithalal Shemei Dekudesha B'richu Le'ehela min kol birchata V'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damihiran bi'alama v'yimeru. Amen. Let's just read the last paragraph on 145 in English together. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. Page 146, if you are able to stand for Baruch Hu, please do so. If not, please stay exactly where you are and join me. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach Le'olam va'ed. Please be seated if you were standing. Page 148. Let's read together in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach she'arim uvitvuna meshana itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem Barakia kirtsono, borei yom valayla, Golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzivot shemo, El chai v'kayam, Tamid yimloch aleinu liolam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Let's read the translation together in the middle of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzivaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Page 150. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amacha ahavata Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu V'shachvenu u'v'kumeinu Nasiach bechukecha V'nishmach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha Le'ol olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu v'orech yameinu Uvahem negeh Yomam v'halayla, Yomam v'halayla. V'yavatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim. Baruch ata Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. 152. Shema Yisrael. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 154. V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadivarim ha'ele Asher anochi mitzabecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chetavtam Al mezuzot beitecha uvihi she'arecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Let's turn now to the top of page 158 and sing together. Mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osei fele. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe zeli anu v'yamru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov Ugialo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Gahal Israel. Page 160. Let's read together first in English. In the middle of the page. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, over all of humankind, and over Jerusalem. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, L'shalom. V'hamidenu, Malkeinu, L'chaim. Ufros aleinu, Sukat Shalomecha, V'taknenu b'etza tova, Milefanecha, V'hoshienu leman shemecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'al Yerushalayim. Page 162, top of the page. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, Oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, Asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Now, if you're able, you can stand, face Jerusalem, whichever way that is for you. And we will begin the silent Amidah, the Tefillah, which you will find on page 166. And it continues. You have to forgive me. This is not my normal siddur, so I have to thumb through the pages to see how far you have to go. But of course, you can read as much or as little of these formal words as you wish. But if you make it all the way to 178 or 179, or actually even 180, you'll have done the whole job. And I'll give you a few moments for this silent prayer. please do continue if you are still in prayer. Otherwise, if you'd like to turn to page 182, there is no repetition of the Amidah in the evening service, but there is a sort of miniature repetition of the Amidah that is found on page 182. I actually don't remember whether you do this normally or not, but it's very lovely, and we'll include it tonight. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon, Konei Shamayim v'Haaretz, Magen Avot Bidivaro, Mechaye Metim B'Ma'amaro, Ha'el HaKadosh Shein Kamohu, Hameniach Le'ahamo, V'yom Shabbat Kodsho, Ki v'ham Ratza Lehaniach Lahem, Ki v'ham Ratza Lehaniach Lahem, Lefanav Navod, B'yirav Afachad, V'nodeh Lishmo, B'chol Yom Tamid, Me'on HaBarachot. El HaHodaot, Adon HaShalom, Mekadesh HaShabbat, Umevarech Shvi'i, Umeniach B'kedusha, Le'amedu Shnei Oneg, Zecher Lema'aseh Bereshit. Okay, so this is the time when the rabbi teaches something. So I said to Dan, what are the limits on me? I don't mean in time, I mean in content. And I was given a relatively free hand for this evening. So here's what I'd like to share with you. And I want you to keep watching your screens because I'm going to share with you something visual as well. You know, we're in a moment in time in which we are being bombarded, in essence by ourselves, but bombarded with this, with what we are being told is a virulent wave of anti-Semitism, sweeping not only campuses, not only this country, but all over the world. And all our Jewish organizations are getting tremendous opportunities to tell us how deeply committed they are to us, to rid this. They involve politicians, etc. I don't want to give away my own feelings about this particular focus, but as a Jewish educator, all I will say to you is that if this is the focus of the Jewish people, this will be the end of our focus, because our young people have no interest in this topic. They are basically becoming inundated with this view that all we are made up of is being somebody's enemy. Now, some of that is true, but I want to take you tonight to, instead of an anti-Semitism experience, I want to take you to a pro-Semitism experience. And I'm going to take you on this experience to the country of Morocco. Some of you know that I created and run a program called Kivunim, which is a gap year program for students between high school and college, which is based in Israel and then travels out during the course of the year around the whole academic program to study about the diaspora communities, really in many ways all over the world. We travel to 12 different countries from Morocco to India. Obviously, in this year, we were much more limited. We were in Israel until the end of May, and I had begun the program a little bit later in the fantasy, meaning something I was deciding last spring, that by the time we got to this late spring, there would be, as some people were promising, some kind of vaccine, and we would be able to travel in June and July. So we extended the program to the end of July in the hope that we could do so. And in fact, on June 1st, we left Israel and flew to Morocco, where we spent a month. From Morocco, we flew to Greece for 2 weeks. From Greece, we flew to Germany. From Germany, we flew to the Czech Republic, to Prague. And at the end of July, our students came home, not with the same experience of every previous year, but with something remarkably powerful. And in Morocco, we had several extraordinary experiences in a country where, ironically, the Jew, instead of in this Muslim country, where, by the way, the king of Morocco, that dynasty, holds the title in the Islamic world of the defender of the faithful. That is to say, the king of Morocco is an official of Islam all over the world. In that country, as has been the case for us since we began traveling to Morocco in 2005, we are received with the most extraordinary open arms, not just in a sort of simple, meaningless gesture, but in real reality. And I want to tell you about one experience that we had, and then I'm going to show it to you on a share screen so you can see some of it yourself. There is a city on the Moroccan coast of the Atlantic Ocean called Essaouira. It is known to many Jews as Mogador. It was a very famous community because in the heyday of Essaouira Mogador, 50% of the population of this city were Jews, which meant that, for example, you couldn't really not observe Jewish holidays on the public calendar, because if you didn't, the stores in 50% of the cases or more wouldn't even be open. So it was a unique place, unlike any other city in the whole Arab world. A 50, and actually at many times it was even 55% Jewish. Today, there is only one Jew left in Essaouira, but the Jewish heritage of Essaouira is part of the story of the city. And the foundation that's called the Essaouira Mogador Foundation, and all of the institutions in the city and all of the leadership feel the power of that Jewish history. They are in the process of reconstructing, sort of doing what you're doing with your building, but in magnificent form. They are reconstructing buildings that for the last 20, 30 years were just allowed to wither away into almost nothing. And one of these buildings was the private home of a very wealthy merchant. And that merchant had this beautiful villa in the center of the old city of Essaouira. And inside of their home, inside of their villa, they had a small synagogue, actually not much smaller, I don't know which way to say this to not insult anybody, but similar in size to your sanctuary, which is, pretty small, pretty intimate. And over time, when nobody took care of it, decades and decades, it had all just been destroyed. The Judaica that was in there was taken to Casablanca to the Museum of Moroccan Jewry, and it was basically no space for anybody to go into. 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to rebuild and build a Jewish museum with the history of this Jewish community inside of this Atias family villa, and to reconstruct the synagogue and then bring all the Judaica back from the museum and put it up in the synagogue, even though there are no Jews living in town. And it was not likely that the synagogue would be used. This year, because we had all this extra time, I decided, let's spend Shabbat in Essaouira, and we'll go to this synagogue, and let me see whether I can get permission for us to have an egalitarian service in that synagogue with boys and girls participating fully, reading Torah, leading the service, etc. And I have become very friendly with the senior advisor to King Mohammed VI, a man named Andrei Azoulay, one of the most distinguished diplomats in Europe. I wrote to Andre, who's very involved in this project. He wrote back and he said, absolutely, you may do so, without even thinking about the fact that the minyan that we were proposing would be the first egalitarian minyan in the history of Morocco. And Morocco's Jews go back 2,000 years. They are one of the oldest communities of Jews in the world, but never before had there been a minyan mixed. So I want to show you. I'm going to hope that you sort of got the spirit of what I was trying to convey. That there is something else going on in the world besides all the negativity, and what you need to know is that how do I have that video? Because it was Shabbat, and our program, while not per se a religious program, since we have kids from all different kinds of backgrounds, we observe a traditional Shabbat, and we would not have recorded this, but all the Moroccan, meaning Muslim staff of the foundation, were watching this. They took out their cameras, they took out their phones, and they recorded everything that they saw because they were just stunned by it. It moved them. It was a part of them that was being sung and danced with those young American Jews in front of them. Even though their community has almost no Jews left, Jews come to visit. And this was an example of what can happen. So all I wanted to say in terms of a short Devar Torah tonight is that when we gather for a Kabbalat Shabbat service, which has so much in it that is positive, all those things that we were just commenting upon as we worked our way towards the Amidah, the image of nature, the association with the broader world, the appreciation of the powers of good that are around us, we do need as a community and as a people to remind ourselves that that is part of us also, and that maybe some of those more positive forces are the kinds of things that actually can bring us closer to each other. I use this as an example because I'd just like you to think about the fact that if we actually brought this story, and it's part of a much larger, extraordinary story about how Morocco participated and really saved its 300,000 Jews during the Second World War, if we as a Jewish community brought these stories onto campuses, brought them to our synagogues, recognized them in public, we might actually find ourselves in a different relationship with the majority cultures in which we live, and even other minorities in particular, and we might have a different spirit of our time. I will continue to talk about this in more detail with regard to tomorrow's. This is not an advertisement, but for tomorrow's Devar Torah, which will be about the parasha tomorrow, and about the fact that we're gonna greet the new month tomorrow, the month of Elul, the month that precedes Rosh Hashanah, a time when we have an opportunity to really rethink who we are and the way we think. Okay, so now, Shelley, would you help me? Because as I said, I'm not familiar so much with your Siddur, and I lost my place for the prayer for healing, which is what we're up to. What page should I be on? Shelley?
Yeah, I don't have the Siddur actually because I'm watching, but Marsha's telling. Marsha, can you just put in the chat? It's 371.
371.
Yeah.
You know, when you get a substitute, you have to accept that you don't get everything that you want.
We are grateful you are here, Peter.
So I have some names of people that we are thinking about and remembering today in terms of illness. But of course, you know better than I, people who may not be on this list. And you please, since we're not together, should mention them in your home, think of them in your hearts. And also, please forgive me if I mispronounce some of the names that I'm not familiar with. You know that in my heart and hopefully in my mouth, the names will come out correctly. So we are going to recite a Mishaberach. We're going to sing the Mishaberach for the following people and all those in your experience, your hearts, and your minds. Toby Spitz, Chana Ruth Batsara, Roberta Kyle, Jeff Baker, David Tasher, Jim Cohn, Monique Renee Banks Rathbun, Lindsay Epstein, Dolores Mishka, Sylvia Orn, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Chaim Leib, Joyce Weinberg, Rick Gold, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Diederik Klein, Judy Stern, Miriam Cornfield, Roz Brody, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva, Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Eidal Basha Bat Yitzchak, Sfi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker. On page 371, we'll sing together in the middle of the page. Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habaracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imahotenu mikor habaracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Please now turn to page 586. Rise if you are able to stand for Aleinu, which we'll sing together. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu ki gayei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. We're now going to prepare to recite the Mortis Kaddish. Let's first read together, before I read the names on our lists, read the beautiful words at the bottom of page 595 at the bottom. There are stars up above, so far away, we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. And we remember Miles Ambrose, Jeanette Kopp, Paul Silver, Morris Dickstein, Morty Lynn, Marilis Silverberg, Fred Eber, Jerry Monroe, Blanche Sklar, Sandra Furman, Steve Popkin, Rita Sandra Snyder, Evelyn Gelb, Danielle Lisa Rigg, Joan Strong Tenzelius, Lucy Gladstone, Geraldine Rosen, Virginia Tizer, Phyllis Katz, Harriet Roth, Ann Weiss, Elsie Belsky, Bill Durst, Tobias Gilbert, Daniel Karp Goodman, David Harris, Sophie Klopman, Rachel Lewontin, Michael Littman, Rose Massoff, Rebecca Matlis, Andrea Ruby Okino, Jack Pastor, Alicia Brown Pomeroy, Haftish Rebish, Esther Schulman, Vera Sims, Linda Stelmack, and Eric Strasser. With all of these and those who are not on that list but are in your hearts and your minds and your memories, let us please join together on page 598 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam u'li'omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. You may be seated. Before we say Kiddush, I'm going to just read some announcements. Can you imagine? This is the epitome of the substitute rabbi trying to make announcements. So you'll forgive me if I screw it up, but here we go. Shabbat morning services tomorrow will be live streamed at 9:30 a.m. That is to say, we won't have a Zoom, so I won't even be able to see you. Join us on our website, YouTube channel, or Facebook page. Archived versions will be available for viewing shortly after each service ends. Then join us tomorrow at 12 o'clock on Zoom, where we will have a Torah study session facilitated by Myra Peskowitz, which will be fantastic, using a women's commentary. So please have your green chumash with you and get home or be home at 12 o'clock for that study session. Nida Mitzvah is on Monday at 11:30 a.m. Contact Andrea Fagan for more information. The Social Justice Committee meets at 5 p.m. On Thursday, there's a Zoom talk by, believe it or not, also my cousin, Dr. Grace Kessler Overbeek, on the many Mrs. Meisels, followed by a question and answer with her cousin, Rabbi Dan. Register for this fun event on Eventbrite. And what I want to tell you is this. Gracie is one of the world's experts. She has a PhD in the Jewish comedienne, and she is unbelievable. Her stories, her sense of humor, her presentation, it's amazing. And I would suggest not only that you clear your calendar and be there on Thursday, but invite anybody and everybody you know, Jewish or not Jewish. You will find it to be absolutely fantastic. I heard her give this talk at the Center for Jewish History a couple of years ago, and I told Dan about it, and you're finally getting the results. Shabbat by the Bay will be held next Friday at Havens Beach, beginning at 5:30 p.m. with a pre-service schmooze and Tikkun Olam project, a social justice project that will actually start at 5 p.m. Please note that this is a family Shabbat celebration, and there will be unvaccinated children under the age of 12 in attendance. We'll end Shabbat next Saturday, August 14th, with an in-person and live stream concert featuring the musical talents of our Shabbat pianist, Keelan Watlington, and student cantor Lauren Roth. The theme is, quote unquote, leaving Shabbat, music to soothe the soul, unquote. The concert is free and open to the community, but in-person attendance requires proof of full vaccination. And those of you who've been at Keelan's earlier concerts this summer know that it'll be a wonderful, fun evening. With Lauren added, it's going to be terrific. Looking forward, there will be a class with Alan Levin on the month of Elul, about Elul, and Slichot, the prayers of seeking forgiveness, on the 18th of August. And Dr. Stephen Rosen, who gave a fantastic class last week that I attended, will again charm us on the 19th with a talk and question and answer about his book, quote, Out on a Limb, Taking a Chance with Words, unquote. We cap off the month on the 31st with another fabulous outdoor docent-led tour, this time at Bridge Gardens and their new sculpture exhibit in Bridgehampton, and it includes a bagel brunch. Look for details on these and all our programs and events in our weekly e-blasts and on our website calendar. And if for some reason, after hearing this announcement every week, you are still not getting our emails, please let the temple office know. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Okay, so now, Kiddush. And I'm not going to refer you to a page. We'll end with Kiddush, and then I'll just say a few words of parting, and then I'll hope that at least some of you will come back tomorrow morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. That's your part. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemase v'hereshit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim b'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. And a little quick motzi, and then you should all get muted so we can say hello to each other. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. By the way, okay, Shelley, can we unmute everybody? Or I have to do it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Where do I do this?
I think everybody can unmute themselves.
Oh, yes? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Everybody can
Oh,
unmute.
you can't? Okay.
All right, wait a
Let
second.
me see. On the bottom, it should say, yeah, ask all to unmute.
Where's it say? that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, on the bottom, on the bottom.
Okay, great.
Woo! Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
And
It was wonderful, wonderful.
no, I
It was
want to tell you
wonderful, Peter, wonderful.
that Kiddush, that's a traditional melody that you learn for your bar bat mitzvah. And I learned it for my bar mitzvah, but it's not my family's melody. So I never use that melody, except that I saw that Dan uses it in shul. So when I was driving around this afternoon, I kept trying to think to myself to figure, do I know this melody or do I not know this melody? And it is ingrained in my
Oh,
brain,
that's
from
so
my
good.
father's teaching. So it's there, even though I never use it. So that was a lot of fun.
It was great. Everything was great. It was
Oh,
Did a
Peter-
great job.
Did a good job.
Yay.
Peter,
you.
thank you
Thank
so
you all
much.
for
Yeah.
showing up.
Peter.
Thank you for showing up, because the
thank you.
funny thing about this, like tomorrow when I do the service, I don't know whether there's anybody out there.
I promise you, I'll tell you that there's at least 5 people.
Okay,
Exactly.
good. Okay, good, good.
Because
Not
there's
a
about
million?
5 people
Good.
coming in on Saturdays these days.
Okay, terrific. Well, everybody have a wonderful Shabbat. Great
You
to
as
see
well.
you all.
Uh,
Soon
Thank
we'll
you.
be together in
You
person.
as well.
And
Thank
look,
you.
I wanna-
Shalom,
I wanna
everybody.
just tell you-
Hi, Andrea.
I want to just tell you that I know that your spirit is helping Lou. This is a very difficult
Oh, I know.
several weeks for her, losing her mother so
Oh.
quickly after bringing her east. It's been a very difficult time, and your support and your care and your concern is really felt by Dan and by Lou, but really by Lou in particular. And I want to express appreciation for it as a member of the family. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
Very upset
Great.
about it.
So-
Yes, very upset. It's very bad. Oh, terrible.
And
Take care,
thank you so
everybody.
much for stepping
Okay.
up at the last
yes.
minute to help out.
Thank you so
You're
much.
most welcome. It's my honor.
All right, I could have
Shabbat
done it too. I know every page.
Okay,